Hey, um, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. I'm thrilled to run it for you. I have joined Octopi this year, an amazing company. I'm the VP of product at Octopi. My experience is 25 years in technology companies. I worked for companies like SAP, for example, but data is one of my hidden, let's say, interests, and Octopi was a perfect fit for me. Today, we will dive into a very basic use case that you probably are dealing with on a daily basis. However, maybe the ones that have experience with it are starting to understand the magnitude of it. Today, I will speak about why today is even more important. And the ones that are not familiar with this process, I would be happy to dive in, starting with a very generic approach and then with actual examples. So today, we're starting with a simple introduction, why it's important. There are many buzzwords that I'm hearing lately, so I'd like to verify that all of us are on the same page before we're diving in. We'll take two examples of critical scenarios. There are many examples. I'm sure you are dealing with it on a daily basis, but recently we as a company, because of one of our customers, understand that there are two critical scenarios that we'd like to relate to it in a different way. And we shall see also Octopi in action at the end of the session. Of course, for any other question that you might have, we'll be happy to take it offline. We're here for you. We have also customers in the session. We have newcomers. So I'm happy to meet you all. And I'm pretty sure that we'll meet after the session in secondary sessions, especially with our customers. So let's dive in. We all hear about data democratization, literacy, and self-service. And I'm pretty sure that, for example, companies like Octopi that started a few years ago, when we were speaking about data lineages, was not something that really had a grasp in that sense of why it's important within the scenarios that we are speaking about, literacy and self-service. So once upon a time, we had a small data team that we were approaching for every corner of the enterprise to make a change, to understand why a report is breaking, to understand how to build a model, a table on top of something existing without breaking anything. And more important, how to, let's say, not interrupt the business continuity. Now, the self-service and data literacy is something that we hear more and more. And the holy grail for all of us is to achieve it. And let's understand why. So promoting self-service and fostering collaboration in our company, why is it so important? First of all, we need to be independent. And to understand data means that we need to foster and to drive a self-service culture. What do I mean by that? When you share the understanding of data processes, it reduces silos and encourages collective problem solving and innovation. And who amongst us were not trying to achieve that holy grail, to have the business operations taking care of themselves? And we have wonderful tools today, for example, BI tools that are visualizing the opportunity to create your own reports without bothering us, the data teams, right? And today is something that I hear more and more from all the customers, that it's imperative to promote self-service in the company. Data literacy, it's starting to gain a clear understanding why it's important. And to drive this data literacy, you need to have a clear understanding of the data origin, transformations, and dependencies, because then you will understand the usage of your data, where it's being used. If I have a project to change the table, a very important table, central table in my data landscape, it's important to understand where the data is used. That means that you need to have a way to make it accessible and understandable to all stakeholders. And I'm not speaking about the ones that are technical experts of the data, not the data engineers and data architects. This is obvious. but I'm speaking about the ones that are not in the technical expertise that you expect, stakeholders, business stakeholders. And to do that, you need to foster a culture of data-driven decision making across the organization. And how do you do that? I know that AI is all over the places, and we hear about that for the past 6 months or so when ChatGPT came to the world, and now AI is being everywhere. And I remember once upon a time when the big data started as a buzzword, and then we heard about the cloud and the ones that are for many, many years in the industry. Big data is nice. Now we have the big data, and now we need to monetize on it. And we have that opportunity with generative AI, with LLM models. So I'm sure that data scientists today in your companies are taking place in terms of how to monetize on the data, how to make business faster. I'm trying to be as modest as possible. I know that in order to really embrace AI, machine learning, and real-time analytics, the impact analysis role is growing in terms of how to manage it. For example, you have to understand the connections, to see the connections and dependency of the data, to enable stakeholders to predict the impact of proposed changes. I'm a fan of Back to the Future, and I always have the same example. I have the DeLorean taking me to the future to understand if I'm doing that change, how it will break the data landscape. And we know best when we get that phone call from a CEO or the CRO, VP of sales saying you broke the daily dashboard, the daily reports that I'm looking at. I cannot quantify the revenue. I have a mistake in it. I cannot run with the application that enables for me to take online orders from our customers because something in the data landscape broke. So with AI in place, we're required to be very accurate to understand how to forecast the event of change. Therefore, you need to meticulously plan your change. And we'll see together what would be the approach in two scenarios. So as I said, you need to foresee and minimize disruptions. And this is important because let's say if once upon a time, and it wasn't that long ago, we had the ability to understand that it takes time to apply a change. Today, we are feeling more and more the pressure from business to make the change in a day. We can say, yeah, but tomorrow, okay, we'll make it in a day, but we know that it takes 3 months. So how can we quantify this? How can we justify this to management? So there is a certain pressure to make a change faster and without disruptions. For the ones that are dealing with it on a daily basis, I'd like to return to the basics. So impact analysis is vital to maintain the integrity of data and to ensure that you have consistency and accuracy of the business intelligence, of the analytics that you're trying to create, of the models, ML models that you're trying to create. It enables organizations to anticipate potential disruptions and mitigate risk associated with changes in data management systems. So you need to evaluate potential outcomes of the data system change. You need to forecast, right, what would be the impact on the business before you're making the change. You need to simulate somehow, if you're making the change, what would be the effects, and to identify dependencies and plan accordingly. I have a customer saying that finally, with Octopi, they can actually provide a visual to the management, say, it will take 3 months because look at this, by changing a field, a simple field or a simple calculation in a CRM system, then we need to ensure that all the reports or the online applications, the business application that you have that are impacted by it, should be carefully planned, designed to understand that you're not breaking it. And of course, in order to do that, you need to be sure that compliance-wise, you're not breaking anything, right? You have this pain as well, that impact analysis in generally aids in regulatory compliance. It helps you to understand the effects of changes in particular on data privacy, security, and governance. So by providing a comprehensive view of data lineage, and this is the example that I was talking about that customer, it really assists you in making informed decisions. And regarding data system modifications, migration, system decommissions, this is another game, right? So I know, for example, that one of the pains that are typical, and probably have this also in your companies too, and I mentioned this earlier, because we have today very nice way, an easy way to enable the business analyst to create many reports, and you have the data scientists create many ML models and analytics models in general. There is, let's say, a snowball of technical debt that we don't know how to really cope with it. And because it's so easy to create something today, I'm going to the reports thing because I know one of the customers says that it become the #1 problem in a technical debt. Then how can I ensure that when you sunset reports, when you decommission something, it really takes into account the entire inventory of assets? How do you do that? And in that space, maintaining data integrity in your data landscape. And of course, you always have that ticket coming in and to really run with the root cause quickly. But the important thing, the essential thing is to foresee the change before you get that ticket, right? So I've taken 2 examples. We'll dive into each one of them. Modernizing the reporting ecosystem because of the tools that are out there, and also because today creating a report, sometimes it just needs an OpenAI notable plugin. Sometimes you have a way to create the analytics within a very easy to create a dashboard, of course, but if you want to get there from a legacy reporting system and you need to replace it, and then it's another game. You cannot just dive into it and start working it. You start with the basic. You start with requirements gathering. You understand the technical needs, you document everything. You start with the data backup, how to preserve all existing data. And we've been there. We sunset something, we replace a system, and then suddenly a very important piece of information has disappeared. So we need to understand how to back up the data. We need to map it, to identify data transformation needs. And here, for example, Octopi is becoming indispensable in that sense that you can spotlight, let's say, hidden interdependencies, ensure that while we modernize systems, we don't unintentionally dismantle the business process that underpin, right? Sometimes you need to work with the business to ensure that you set the expectations right. I had one of the customers saying that the best way is when you plan such change is to sit down with the business and prioritize what are the most important things that need to be replaced first. And I heard another way of practicing this is by saying, I'm just moving. I don't care about the garbage in, garbage out. It's just to move first. And that will, for example, give you maybe a safer way to do that. But there are 2 approaches. From my end, I think that the best approach is, and believe me or not, I'm taking the safer approach. Yes, the garbage in, garbage out. And the sense of it is because when I'm trying a selective approach, it will drag the actual project. And we are under the gun here to make sure that the budget-wise, we have all hands on deck, and therefore it could be a safer approach, but this is your decision, of course. Now, prototyping is everything. You need to do a POC to make sure that the walking skeleton, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, we have a walking skeleton, meaning everything, the entire process of replacing the system takes place at once. And this is very, very important to do that. It doesn't matter if it's a data approach or development approach. It's always important to create a walking skeleton prototype before. And then you have to understand the use of ETL processes to adjust data to the new system, and testing. Testing is everything. One of the organizations I'm speaking with are falling into that whole of let's test everything. You need to conduct unit system and user acceptance tests, of course, but what about pinpointing the actual impact and then test only the things that you think that they will break? Could be a choice. Performance tuning, you need to optimize it, of course. Security review, this is very important today to ensure data protection and compliance, especially for the governance units. So if you are trying to understand the lineage of what would be, if you're replacing a system, replacing a reporting system, you need to understand if you are compliant, right? You have that auditor in place that wants to understand the traceability of that reporting system that you are replacing, and that needs to be protected in that way. And you need to quantify it before the actual change. So every data dependencies is identified, and you have every transformation as traceable. Look at Octopi in that sense as a safety net, because it provides a comprehensive real-time view of data landscape, ensure that no detail is overlooked in that transition process. You need to, of course, document and train. And imagine if you have in place where you have the transformations available, the dependencies, you plan the change, you also understand in terms of the governance, how the asset is being managed today. So one of the advices that I got from our product, Chief Product Officer, Gal, is working, he founded Octopi, and this is basic on his experience. Don't wait with the documentation. I put it here at the step, but if you're starting the project, start documenting upfront for every asset. So if you plan the change, also imagine how to manage the asset. Don't wait until the end of it, especially if you're doing like a garbage in, garbage out, you move once. If you're doing this in a selective approach, fine, just document upfront. Start with this. This would be the way to manage the compliance routine as well. Now, you have to have a rollback plan. It's that old story to revert to the old system if necessary, but this is something that I probably don't need to tell you that. Another huge change, I'm not speaking about the ones that, for example, how to change the type of field, how to address a table data changes. I'm speaking about the heavy ones, because this is a huge change. I hear more and more, and this is because also I'm coming from that field, from the ERP field, that companies are moving from an existing ERP to another one. I'm not saying upgrading, really migrating to another ERP systems. There is a move from on-prem to cloud, of course. So there are companies taking that decision. Okay, we have this legacy system for 20, 30 years. Great. Now we have the opportunity to modernize the entire data landscape. So one of the pillars that we need to take into consideration, how to move to a cloud ERP. And this is, yes, moving the data. The system will completely be replaced. So you need to sometimes recreate your business processes. So, and that you have to have the business keep going, right? So swapping out an ERP system is like changing the engine in a car that it keeps moving while it's running, right? For those who work with the data, it's not just moving stuff from A to B, it's making sure that all the little pieces still talk to each other properly. Missing just one link can mess things up tremendously. It's ensure that the complex server dependency remains intact. Overlooking a single data linkage can disrupt a core business function and process. And we know best that interrupting a business will cost the company many, many euros and dollars, right? So let's address it in terms of the process. Let's go over it. You have the data landscape analysis first. You need to catalog all data touch points, sources, and flows related to the ERP. Sometimes it's the base of it, right? And we'll see in the demo how a very basic field in an ERP system is being used and transformed throughout the entire data landscape. You use it for almost everything. We'll see in a minute how. And you need to visualize the tool out existing pathways, meaning you have to have a clear understanding to visualize all the transformations and dependencies. You need to have a data quality assessment, profiling the ERP's data for consistency and accuracy, of course, and detect outliers. Schema migration and schema and migration planning, you need to align the source ERP schema with the targets and design an appropriate ETL process. You need to understand how to build the necessary connectors. And moving forward, you need to pilot, going back to the pilots and going back to, do I have a full migration or I'm taking a subset first? This is imperative to understand, even within the pilot phase, how to understand if I'm moving with a selective approach or moving, let's say, shift left, right? There is another title for it. It's important to address it right now and run the pilot accordingly. You have a post-migration validation, of course. You need to cross-check everything between the old and the new ERP. You need to benchmark performance metrics, update and test data integrations, adjust the data pipelines, especially in related system, and perform some rigorous integration testing. It goes without saying that in an ERP space on its own, even regardless of the session, user acceptance test is a heavy project, right? And testing of everything. Also here, when you adjust your data pipelines in related system, and this is something that I've seen as a silo approach, that you have the ERP project team working. They're creating a very nice project in terms of how to test the new business processes, and they're forgetting that they're part of the data landscape. I'm sure that their work, that ERP project team will work with within the IT team, will work with the data team, of course, but it's so wide that you need to make sure that when they're running with a pilot and when they're running with the actual migration, you are part of it and you're adjusting the data pipelines accordingly in the system that are consuming the ERP information. And of course, you need to move on to continuously monitoring that, get the feedback. Again, another opportunity in going back to the documentation. You can migrate and start documenting to have that knowledge transfer, of course. I personally provide you with the best advice to start with this step early in the process. When you do the data landscape analysis, here, exactly, the first step would be a good approach to start the documentation and to start with what if approach as well. Goes without saying, you need to have a contingency planning. You need to maintain a snapshot of this system. What we have, for example, in Octopi is before and after. You can actually get to understand the lineage before. You can compare it with the after. It is something that is for you to prepare a rollback mechanism for emergencies. But all this is just to safeguard you against process disruptions, ensure that the very fabric of business operations remains intact. Okay, so let's move on. So Octopi, for the ones that are not familiar with us, consider it as like a live data map. I'm always taking an example, taking the example of Waze, another let's say, way to visualize how you move from A to B, right? But imagine that you have this within your data landscape. And sometimes when we work with new customers, the first aha moment that they have is somehow overwhelming, because when you see this live, you have the entire data landscape being mapped. Sometimes it's overwhelming, and to understand the complications that you couldn't say beforehand, oh, now I know how to apply that change to a table, because now I can provide with Octopi where the data has been used. So in that sense, Octopi is AI-powered real-time data navigation and dependencies exploration for highest data quality and efficiency. Okay, apologies. Let's understand together how it's working. It's basically a single source of truth. Imagine that you have today, and this is another problem that I see in companies. We talked about working in silos, right? We talked about self-service, data democratization, and data literacy. In order to have this accomplished, the best way is to ensure that you have the data governance teams, the data technical teams, let's call it that way, working together. And we have also the IT teams, and have the business analysts and the business users working within the same space. Typically, you go to, let's say, a way to create a governance, big initiative, 6 months, 1 year project, you start big, right? I'm not diminishing such initiative. However, for companies that want to have like a faster way to get into that initiative, I would prefer to have all working together on a single platform, to have one single source of truth. So imagine that you have all sources of data, all the systems managed within the same platform. You have databases, the ETLs, the ELTs, reporting system, scripts, your files, all sources of data are being mapped into one platform that provides you not only with a technical data catalog that serves, yes, mainly the technical users, but not only. You have an automatic way to discover your data, and you have multi-layers of data lineage. You have a way to understand cross systems, right? We talked about that. You replace your ERP, you replace your reporting system, you want to make a change to a table, you want to decommission a system. How do you do that? How to understand the interdependencies across your systems? You also understand how to transform an object. For example, we'll see in the demo in a second. If you want to move from MySQL to Snowflake, how I'm supposed to deal with it, right? We'll have Octopi coming for your help in a second. And of course, a single asset end-to-end flow. There are many referring to it, the end-to-end column lineage. So we have all this as a way to be a detective and really going back to the live maps to really understand your destination. One more important thing is that one of the pitfalls of big initiatives of data governance are not taking into consideration that to harvest the metadata takes time. It could take 6 months, 12 months if you're going with tools that are only looking at the data governance. With Octopi, we're looking at this in a different way. We're harvesting the metadata automatically for data lineage, right? But it's also being pre-populated into the catalog as well for the technical users. So we have all this in one place, just to save your time and reducing your risk compared to manual exploration. One of the experts that we have in the company said to me early when I joined the company that our customers are not imagining how to run Octopi, how to not to run Octopi, meaning something that could take you a week just to understand the mapping of a single field that you need to change. We had one customer saying, congratulations, now we are going to have more than 1 million customers. I said, fine, great. You don't understand. It's like Y2K, because we need to actually increase from 1 million to 10 millions right now, or to 100 millions. It's a huge change, right? It impacts everything. So customer ID impacts in the entire data landscape. So how do you do that? So imagine that you have an automatic data discovery to really create an inventory of all the impacts. Start with that, right? So let's move forward. And I'm going into the AI again. This is something that I'm working on personally, to have this roadmap and strategy, and we're starting to incorporate it. This is for our customers. It's coming soon. And you'll see, for example, that one of the best scenario is if I need to fix a script, or if I want to migrate to another system, how can I move faster? So we're going to incorporate it in the following days in our, it's already there, it's integrated, to be manifested in our application very, very soon. But using live lineage and AI, and live lineage means that I'm actually able to visualize the script, we'll see in a second, to optimize it performance-wise. And we talked about literacy and self-service. If you have a less technical stakeholder, if you have someone new joining the team, right, we know that unfortunately there is high turnover. People are moving in and out after a few years, and you need to keep the knowledge. And when you have the live data map with Octopi, it's already there. Imagine how a new person coming into your team gets to know it. It's just there. You just need to map it. You look at it, you map it, you investigate it, you start to learn on the fly whilst you're running with the actual change impact analysis. So it's a very good training on the job for a new person, just to understand exactly where you have all the transformation dependencies in the data landscape. So I will take the last minutes of the session to ensure that you see how Octopi is coming into action. And let me jump to it. Second. Okay. Let's see if you see my screen. I hope you do. Okay. Let's see. So before I'm starting with Octopi in action, just to give you a quick sense of what is Octopi Platform. So as I said, it's a one-stop shop for everything. You have multi-layers of data lineage. We are the experts of data lineage, of course, but we're moving on to understand how to have a good investment in terms of the roadmap for data quality and observability in general. Therefore, what you see today is just the promise. We are moving on to even more exciting things like, as I said, generative AI within our product. We are covering so many technologies. This is another plus. We have, let's say, a way to map hybrids, complex landscapes within 48 hours. And I'm saying on-prem and cloud. I'm speaking about legacy systems and new system. We have many customers using Octopi for migrations, for example. So multi-layers of lineage, cross-system, inner, and asset lineage called end-to-end column lineage. We have the automatic discovery, and we have the data catalog. But let's start with a basic scenario. Let's say we have many customers approaching us for guides on how to move to Snowflake. So this is a way to modernize your system. So if you're moving, for example, from MySQL to Snowflake, you know best, you have some issues to fix, syntax-wise, of course, functions and so forth. So one of the things that are not supported in Snowflake is this one. Okay, so let's understand together how, for example, an SQL Server, let's identify the objects of some scripts, how everything is here, everything is automatically harvested in the discovery. So it's being done automatically for all the data landscape. Let's say, for example, we have here 5 objects. Let's say this the object name. We have some object types like functions and procedures, store procedures, and you have some views. Let's take this one. As you may see, at Octopi, we also take into the mapping everything that you have, including the component script. You have the script. One of the things that we need to understand first is, let's say, the inner system lineage. Inner system lineage now within the system. Let's see how it looks. Okay, so we have this live. You have the ability to understand the source, the data source, the transformation, then the target, right? So this is being available to you live in real time. And now if I'm going back to how to fix it, remember the scenario that we were talking about, a way to move from MySQL to Snowflake. Why go further into another system? Why not applying this here in Octopi? So this is the actual script that we want to fix. We want to migrate to Snowflake. For the ones that are very technical, you have here, for example, a pivot function that we know that's not working in Snowflake. You need to fix it. So one of the things that I'm going to provide you in the next day is to provide you with a way to automatically fix it here. For today, I have it already in another created for you. So let's do that. Let's see if I'm taking this script and I'm fixing it here. Okay, I'm running it now to understand how the data lineage is being provided if I'm fixing the script, how to look like in for Snowflake. Okay, so again, it's being manifested right away. Imagine that instead of going to your regular environments, imagine that you have it here, done with Octopi, and it's also something that is being kept as recent activities. It becomes, in a way, for you a workspace when you can actually work with many scripts. If you have hundreds of them, you can keep it here and working on it for the entire project. This is one scenario. Another scenario would be, for example, I'm going back to, for example, an ERP swap scenario, where you need to understand if you fix even a one field, how it will affect the entire, what will be the chain of reactions, right? So if I'm going to, let's say, the E2E column lineage, end-to-end column lineage, let's take this one, and I'm going for example, sales order detail. Okay, now, right, this is something that it's here managed within Octopi. Let's see how it looks like. So this is an amazing opportunity to see how this sales order is being, let's expand it even more. Okay, you have the properties. You have a way to search it in the discovery. You have a way to understand the column lineage. You have everything in one place, even to see it in data catalog, right? If I'm jumping for a second, just to see how this is being managed, you have it here. You don't need to go out to another product, another solution. You have the linked assets. You can actually manage everything here, the data owners, the data stewards, and so forth. And if I'm taking this back to, let's go back to the E2 lineage, and now I'd like to understand the cross-system lineage. And this is something we all need to understand right away. If I'm making a change, and I'm a business user, right, on the ERP side, I want to make a change. Do I know upfront and how much time it will take me even to realize the cross-system impact? It's loading this, for example, let's open the legend. A cross-system typically provides you with ETL processes, DB objects and files, reports and so forth, augmented links that can be manually edited here in Octopi, and dependencies. But for this example, you have, if you're changing this, we talked about planning ahead. You're changing, it could be affecting the SSS ETL process, right? So let's see, that ETL process is impacting another, and so forth. So you have a way to actually move around to understand more and more. If I'm changing a particular sales order detail, how it impacts reports. And one of the reports could be critical to your company, product line sales report, and so forth. So in order to create let's say a huge difference when you work for a company in a data team, is to ensure that the change impact analysis is being managed correctly from day one. So I will stop here. Before I've started this meeting, what I've tried to understand is if our customers and prospects are seeing the data lineage in a different light today. This is just an example, a small one, a teaser for you to make sure that when you're speaking to us, you understand first and foremost that the change impact analysis with Octopi is being enabled within a 360 platform, where you have all the let's say options to understand the dependencies and the impacts on your way to plan it ahead, and to quantify, for example, the effort you need to apply it right from the first moment. So one of the things that are raised again and again, that if you're not running with the change impact analysis right, and then your most important use case would be root cause analysis. And I'm saying this with some cynicism, because if your main use case is root cause analysis, maybe you're missing something. Maybe we need to go back to change management in the company, how the process is being managed, and to make sure that the data teams are part of this process. Because if I'm taking a very basic scenario, when you wake up in the morning with a phone call from the CEO saying that, I don't know, that report of top product sales is being breached, is broken, and now you need to trace your way back to understand why something is wrong. So we have this also with Octopi. It's being used for root cause analysis a lot. But if I'm looking at the point that it's more important to understand how to apply the process of change impact analysis, then I'm going back to the process, foresee the impact before you implement it, that you don't need to run with root cause analysis anymore. So with this in mind, I'm thankful for you to join the meeting. The Q&A session can take place indirectly. My details are here. Okay, so again, my name is Zinat Ezra. You are welcome to contact me with any question that you have. we're starting with a series of webinars, so this is the first one in place. So it will help me to understand how to be less maybe generic and go into technical details for every use case that you'd like to understand how to utilize Octopi for. Therefore, please make sure you have this contact. It's zinet@octopi.com. You can approach me via LinkedIn as well. Next webinar would be about how we have incorporated AI into live lineage. And this is a very important use case for customers that are planning migrations, a very important use case for data literacy. So I will be keen to run it within, I think, 2 or 3 weeks from now. And so see you all next time. Thank you very much.